My mom's been sober for 10 years. Finding my old diary made me realize why she really started drinking. I, 28F, never thought going through old boxes in my parents' attic would change my entire perspective on my childhood. My therapist had suggested I try to connect with my younger self to understand why I kept having these recurring nightmares, but I wasn't prepared for what I found. It started when I was helping my parents move to their retirement home. While sorting through decades of accumulated stuff, I found a small wooden box hidden behind some old Christmas decorations. Inside was a worn-out diary with a broken lock, its pages yellowed with time. The handwriting on the first page was unmistakably mine from when I was 13. At first, I smiled at the typical teenage drama: crushes, friend problems, complaints about homework. But as I kept reading, my hands started trembling. The entries slowly shifted from normal teenage stuff to something much darker. Mom threw another plate today. Dad just sat there again, staring at his phone like nothing was happening. I tried to clean up before my little sister came home from soccer practice. I don't want her to see this stuff. I had completely blocked these memories. In my mind, we were just a normal family with normal problems. Sure, my parents argued sometimes, but doesn't everyone's? Reading these entries was like watching a horror movie where I was the main character, but I couldn't remember filming it. Grandma called again, asking why we never visit anymore. I wanted to tell her about the bruises on Mom's arm, but Dad was standing right there. He always stands right there now. The diary entries got worse. I documented everything with the brutal honesty of a teenager who didn't know how to process trauma. The way my father would check my mother's phone every night. How my mother started drinking in the afternoon. The whispered arguments that turned into screaming matches. The sound of breaking glass that became so normal, I stopped flinching. Today I told my teacher I was worried about Mom. She called CPS. When they came, Mom smiled and showed them around our perfectly clean house. Dad charmed them with jokes. They left saying everything seemed fine. Nothing is fine. My hands were shaking so bad I had to put the diary down. I remembered that day now. I remembered how proud I was of myself for speaking up, and how that pride turned to confusion and then fear when nothing changed. After that, I stopped telling anyone anything. The most chilling part wasn't the events themselves. It was realizing how I'd normalized everything. In later entries, I wrote about these incidents like they were just regular parts of life, like homework or what I had for lunch. Mom broke another glass today. At least she aimed for the wall this time. I'm getting better at cleaning up fast. Pro tip: use thick paper towels first to pick up the bigger pieces, then vacuum twice to get the tiny ones. I sat there in the dusty attic, surrounded by boxes of Christmas ornaments and old toys, feeling like I was reading about a stranger's life. But with each entry, more memories started flooding back. The constant knot in my stomach before going home from school. The way I checked my sister's room every night to make sure she was okay. How I learned to read my parents' moods from the smallest changes in their voices. I think I'm going crazy. Everyone at school talks about their family problems like they're normal stuff. Parents arguing about bills or being too strict. When I try to talk about mine, the words get stuck. Maybe I'm making it all up. Maybe this is normal and I'm just too sensitive. I recognized that doubt. It had followed me into adulthood, making me question every relationship, every conflict. My therapist called it hypervigilance, but I always brushed it off as being cautious. Now I understood why I can't handle raised voices, why I compulsively clean when I'm anxious, why I apologize for everything. The sound of my phone ringing made me jump. It was my sister asking if I'd found any old photos she could use for her wedding slideshow. I looked down at the diary in my hands, then at the caller ID showing her smiling face. She was only 8 when most of this happened. Did she remember? Did she have her own diary hidden somewhere, filled with her version of our childhood? We're going on a family vacation next week. Dad says it'll be fun, just like old times. Mom hasn't said anything. I packed Band-Aids just in case. That vacation. I remembered it now. The forced smiles and photos, the tension in every meal, the way my mother's hands shook as she applied sunscreen. I had convinced myself it was just a boring trip, but the diary told a different story. My teenage self had documented every harsh whisper, every grabbed arm, every silent car ride. I heard my mother's voice calling up from downstairs, asking if I needed help with the boxes. Her voice was different now, steady, clear. She'd been sober for 10 years. My father had passed away 3 years ago from a heart attack, and sometimes I felt guilty for the relief I felt. Looking at the next page, I realized there's so much more to read, so many more memories to unpack. My phone buzzes again, my therapist confirming our appointment for tomorrow. For the first time, I feel like I have something real to talk about, something that might explain everything. The light in the attic is getting dim, but I can't stop reading. Each page feels like another piece of a puzzle I didn't know I was missing. My sister is still waiting for those photos. My mother is still calling from downstairs. But right now, all I can do is keep reading, keep remembering. I had to take the diary home with me that night. My mother's concerned looks as I left made me wonder if she knew it existed, if she remembered those years the same way my teenage self had documented them. I couldn't bring myself to ask. Back in my apartment, I made coffee even though it was already 9 p.m. I needed to stay alert, to keep reading. The next entries were from the summer before high school. The handwriting was different, more hurried, like the words couldn't come out fast enough. Dad lost his job today. He came home early and started drinking. Mom tried to talk to him about applying for unemployment, and he threw her phone across the room. I took my sister to the park until dinner time. When we came back, they were acting like nothing happened. I'm so tired of pretending. That summer came back to me in flashes. The sudden lack of air conditioning because bills weren't paid. Eating lots of pasta and rice because it was cheap. The way my mother started working 2 jobs, leaving before dawn and coming home late. I got a job at the movie theater. Dad says I need to contribute to the family now. Mom cried when I told her, but didn't say anything. I'm supposed to give them my whole paycheck, but I'm hiding some money in my sock drawer. Just in case. I remember that job. 14 years old, lying about my age, working under the table. I'd convinced myself it was normal, that I was just being responsible. But reading it now, the anger bubbles up. What kind of father takes his teenage daughter's minimum wage paycheck? The entries get shorter after that, like I was too tired to write much. Mom didn't come home last night. Dad broke the TV. I told my sister it was an accident. Found Mom sleeping in her car in the grocery store parking lot. She said she was just tired from work. Her lip was split. Dad's drinking the cheap stuff now. It makes him mean faster. My hands were shaking so bad I spilled my coffee. I got up to clean it, and found myself scrubbing the entire kitchen counter, then the stove, then the fridge. Old habits die hard. The next entry made me sit down hard. I think Grandma knows something's wrong. She came over today and saw the holes in the wall that we tried to cover with pictures. Dad told her it was from moving furniture. She looked right at me while he was talking, and I looked away. I'm such a coward. My grandmother. She passed away last year, and I never got to ask her about any of this. Did she try to help? Did anyone? The entries suggest she started visiting more often after that, always bringing food, always asking careful questions. Grandma gave me a cell phone today, said it was an early birthday present, but made me promise to keep it charged and with me always. She programmed her number on speed dial. Dad was mad, but couldn't say anything in front of her. I remember that phone. A basic flip phone that I kept hidden in my school bag. I never had to use it for emergencies, but just having it made me feel safer. Was that my grandmother's intention all along? The sound of a car door slamming outside made me jump. Just the neighbors, I reminded myself. But that automatic fear response, I lived with it for so long I thought it was normal. How many other things did I accept as normal that weren't? Mom's been gone for 3 days. Dad's not looking for her. My sister keeps asking when she's coming back, and I don't know what to tell her. I keep calling Mom's work, but they say she hasn't been there. I'm scared to use the emergency phone to call Grandma. What if Dad finds out? I had to stop reading for a moment. This was the part I'd completely blocked out. Mom's first attempt to leave. She came back 5 days later with a broken arm that she said happened at work. We all pretended to believe her. My phone lit up with a text from my sister. Found Mom's old photo albums. Want to come over tomorrow and look through them? I stared at the message for a long time. Did she remember this period? She would have been 9. Old enough to know something was wrong, but young enough to maybe block it out like I did. The diary entries after Mom's return are different. The handwriting is smaller, more controlled. I started keeping track of everything in a separate notebook. Times, dates, what was broken, what was said. I hide it under the loose floorboard in my closet. I don't know why I'm doing this, but it feels important. That notebook. I'd forgotten about it completely. Was it still there in my old bedroom? The house had been sold years ago, that evidence buried under new carpeting and fresh paint. Mom's drinking more now too. Sometimes they both pass out in the living room, and I have to get my sister ready for school myself. Today I forgot to pack her lunch and cried in the bathroom during 3rd period. My friend asked what was wrong, and I said I was just stressed about tests. I'm getting really good at lying. The entries continue like this, documenting the slow descent of our family life. Each page brings back memories I thought I'd lost, or chosen to forget. The way I'd check all the windows were locked before bed. How I learned to tell what kind of night it would be just from the sound of my father's car in the driveway. The pride I felt in being able to make dinner from whatever random ingredients were left in the pantry. My coffee's gone cold, but I barely notice. Outside, the city is quieting down for the night, but in my head, the past is getting louder. There's still more to read, and part of me wants to stop, to close the diary and shove it in a drawer like I did with these memories for so many years. But I keep turning the pages, watching my teenage self try to make sense of a world that made no sense at all. It's almost midnight now, but I can't stop reading. The next set of entries are from my freshman year of high school. The pages are wrinkled in places, water damage, I realize now. Tears. Something's different with Mom. She's been making secret phone calls when Dad's at work. Today I caught her looking at apartment listings. She closed the webpage when I walked in, but I saw. I'm scared to feel hopeful. I remember this period now, the strange tension in the house, like the air before a storm. Mom had started going to some kind of meetings that she said were for work. Dad was suspicious, checking her phone more often, following her to the grocery store. Grandma took me and my sister to lunch today. She asked a lot of questions about home, about Dad's drinking, about Mom. I wanted to tell her everything, but I was afraid she'd try to help and make things worse. Instead, I told her about my good grades. She looked so sad. The next entry makes my heart stop. Mom's got a plan. She told me today when Dad was out. She's been going to domestic violence meetings, saving money at a secret bank account. She said we're going to leave, but we have to be smart about it. I'm terrified but also relieved. Is that wrong? I had to get up and pace around my apartment. These memories were flooding back now. The whispered conversations, the careful planning, the constant fear of Dad finding out. Mom had been so methodical, so careful. She'd learned from her first failed attempt. We have a code word now. If Mom says she's going to visit Aunt Susan, we don't even have an Aunt Susan. It means we need to grab our emergency bags and get to Grandma's house. I've packed and repacked my bag 5 times. Mom says to only take what we can't live without. The diary entries get more sporadic after that, like I was too afraid to write anything down. Dad found Mom's burner phone today. She convinced him it was an old work phone. He seemed to believe her, but he's watching her closer now. I sleep with my shoes on. My phone buzzes, another text from my sister. Mom's being weird about these old photos. Found some with Dad torn out. Should we talk to her about it? I stare at the message, then back at the diary. Should I tell my sister what I've found? Does she have her own memories of this time? Or did we protect her too well? The next entry is in different handwriting, shaky, urgent. It's happening. Dad's on a 3-day work trip. We're leaving tonight. Grandma's waiting for us. I'm so scared I can barely write. Please let this work. Please. I remember that night with crystal clarity now. How we waited until 2 a.m. How Mom had slowly moved our things to Grandma's over several weeks so Dad wouldn't notice anything missing. How we left most of our stuff behind to make it look like we were coming back. We made it to Grandma's. Mom filed the papers this morning. Dad's been calling everyone, but no one's telling him where we are. Grandma's house has an alarm system now. I jump every time a car drives by. The entries after that document our new life, the restraining order, moving to a new school district, Mom's sobriety journey, Dad's attempts to find us, then his eventual acceptance, the slow process of learning to feel safe again. The final entry is from right before I started sophomore year. Sometimes I feel guilty for being happy. Is that strange? We're safe now. Mom's got a good job. My sister's doing well in her new school. But sometimes I catch myself checking the locks over and over, or flinching when someone raises their voice. Mom says we're all in therapy now because what we went through wasn't normal. I'm starting to understand what she means. I close the diary, my hands trembling. Outside, the city is quiet except for the occasional passing car. My phone shows 3 missed calls from my sister, but I'm not ready to talk yet. Tomorrow, I have my therapy appointment. For the first time, I feel like I can explain why I am the way I am. Why I apologize constantly. Why I need everything to be in perfect order. Why I struggle with trust. Mom's been sober for 10 years now. She's different, stronger, more alive. When Dad died 3 years ago, she didn't cry at the funeral. I thought it was shock, but now I wonder if it was relief. I look at my sister's text again about the family photos. Maybe it's time to talk about all of this. Not just with my therapist, but with my sister, with Mom. Maybe understanding our past is the key to breaking free from it. The diary sits on my coffee table, a simple notebook that unlocked years of buried memories. Part of me wants to hide it away again, to go back to pretending those years never happened. But I know I can't. These memories are part of me, part of my story. I finally text my sister back. Can we talk? There's something I need to show you. It's time to stop pretending. Time to understand. Time to heal.